Backyard Professor Chess Videos. I played this game last week in chess club, and I had a ball with it. This is, if you don't belong to a chess club, you need to, because it's a time to get along with good buddies, and you're sitting playing a relaxing game of chess, and you're learning from each other, and you're trying to experiment and practice several openings that you've been studying, and so on and so forth. And in this particular opening with my opponent, I was playing a guy named Mike. I've never met Mike before. He was new to the club. He opened with the queen pawn opening, and of course I heard the siren call of the Dutch defense, because that's one of the defenses that I study. I'm no good at it yet, but I went ahead and thought, well, this will be a good chance to practice the Dutch defense. When your opponent pulls the f5 pawn up, you're in for war. This defense will either make you or break you too. It's a difficult defense, but the nice thing about the Dutch is when you play the Dutch, it gives you possible tactical sharp variations. And my tactics, I'm working on my tactics. I'm not real good with tactics yet. So the Dutch gives me a chance to explore practicing some tactics. So I can see right now immediately that he is laying claim to this e5 square. You know, his knight's up here, his pawn's up here. He wants this e5 square really bad. So I'm going to strengthen my center. I'm not quite sure if I want to do a stonewall variation with him or not yet. And then he does something interesting. He pushes the pawn to e4. Now the goal in the Dutch for white is to get a pawn to e5 safely. And he's looking at this. e4 and e5, I should say. This is the central fight. My goal, of course, my knight's right here. I want to get this e4 square. He wants to get the e5. So this is the center of the battle in the Dutch defense. It's at this point I thought, well, I've done the stonewall variation a few times, and I've won a couple good games, and I've been wiped out a couple good games. I'm going to experiment and do something different. I'm going to pull my bishop out and go check. Now, I've never played the Dutch this way before, so it's kind of a cool way to break in to see what kind of variations and nuances the chess position will give me. He brings up his bishop. Now, you got to understand something here. My central pawns are on the white squares, right? So you know by definition which one of my bishops is the bad, the white. So why am I pulling my good bishop up here and challenging his bad bishop? This is a good exchange for him. In a normal situation, you don't want to do this, right? But I've been playing through some Alexander Alekhine games, and I've seen a little trick that he plays that I think is really interesting, and I want to see, in a way, it gives me some compensation for trading off my good bishop for his bad bishop. I don't want to trade him down on the d2 square. I want to let him come up and trade me. So here's the Alekhine trick. Push the a pawn. And what this is going to do when he exchanges bishops, which he did exchange bishops, and he has to, I make him exchange on a square that I want to exchange on, and now I take him with my a pawn, which is it's a b4 pawn, which is weak right now, but this gives me an open file. And I'm hoping through the course of development that I can make use of this open file. And I do beautifully. This comes out. I have an imbalance that he doesn't. I have an open file. Now I also have a weak pawn. I'm well aware of that. So this pawn's a target right now, right? Kind of like his e3 pawn is my target. Well, he pushes his b pawn, and of course you can see he's going for the center. This fight is going to be in the center, so it's going to be a fight, so it's always a good idea to castle early when you know there's going to be a war going on, and there's definitely going to be a war going on. Mike pulled his queen up to d2. Now, I'm not so sure about this move. You know, you say, well, the queen's the strongest piece, and that's true. It's got the most power as far as that goes. And it is the strongest piece, but to develop your queen too early, you don't know what square she belongs on. As a general rule, it's best to get your other pieces out on their optimal squares, depending on what the position tells you, and then put your queen out, because she might be on the wrong square, and so she's not as effective. And I don't think this was a good move for him. So I pulled my queen up to challenge him. Ah, the geese are flying overhead. How nice. I'm going to bring my queen out too. Now, I just said don't develop your queen too early, and so what do? I follow suit and develop my queen. But with the Dutch, the kingside option is always stronger for black, the kingside attack. His pawns are basically pointing toward the queen side, so this is the play he's going to play on. And I've kind of encouraged him because I have this lousy weak pawn here that he is threatening, and so I'm coming up to support that pawn at this point. But I don't think his queen belongs here. He's coming after my pawn. He's just not doing it correctly, in my opinion. And now he brings up his good bishop. He's going to obviously get his good bishop in the game, and why not? Because I'm saddled with the bad bishop, and my bishop is extremely bad at this point. He's got a power piece out here that I cannot match in this game. But do you see something interesting here? This is a Sillman technique. I love Jeremy Sillman's teachings because they've helped me read the board so much better than I used to just even 6 months ago, man. The time will go by anyway. You may as well study a fantastic chess course. And I hear there's other chess courses out there. Study and put that information into your games, absolutely. Well, what do I have? What does the board show us here? The board shows that I have a pawn here that is a good support point for this knight. And that is a beautiful square to put the knight. Yes, I'm moving a piece twice in the opening. Technically, something you're not supposed to do as a general rule, but all chess rules are made to be broken. At this point, what this is doing is it's giving me the initiative. I'm dictating the game right now because now I'm threatening his queen that's on this lousy d2, and I'm getting ready to do some really fun stuff over here on the king side, right? So he's got to move his queen. His queen is threatened. What Mike was thinking with this next move, I think, is he was saying, well, I've already developed my queen. I may as well develop her further and put her up here more toward the center instead of moving back and not have him, because I've stopped this square and this square from his knight developing, and he had his queen here and he couldn't bring out his knight. So instead of going back to the original square and admitting that he goofed up moving his queen, he put his queen up front. Now as black, at this point, if you're thinking that the board says kingside attack, kingside attack, no, not yet. Not even. Look, one, he's not castled, okay? But the center is pretty busy. It's not technically closed. There's no locked pawns. There's a lot of activity in the center. And sure, you've got a knight right here. You can come down here and start getting the king. You can bring your queen over. I can't, though, because his knight's here. You can bring your queen out. You can come and kingside attack. No, you cannot. This is where reading the board is so important. But do you see something I can do? Because now here's the first really good tactic. Technically the second good tactic, because I've given myself an open file. I haven't used it yet, but I'm going to be able to. It comes in beautifully in the game. When there is activity on the board, and when the center of the board is not completely locked with pawns, and it's not, there's a lot of open squares. There's a lot of fighting for points. You know, he wants to put his knight right here, too. You see that? The place to play is in the center of the board. That's where your most power is. And I have a beautiful tactic here. There's your hint. He pushed his queen up, and he's blocked his bishop in. He's blocked his bishop out. So why not do a fantastic center thrust with my pawn, give my knight absolute support. E4 is my square. It's not being taken away. I own that square, and threaten the bishop. The bishop's gone. I'm going to get to be a piece up. He can't move the bishop here because I'll simply push my pawn, force him back here, and then push my pawn, and I get to take his bishop. So he's lost a piece because of his faulty opening with his queen. He does the best thing in a bad situation. He goes ahead and takes the central pawn with that bishop. He has to. The bishop's lost. So now I'm a piece up, and look at that position. I mean, woohoo! This is hallelujah chorus time. Two very powerful support points for a knight that's never going to be dislodged. Both of his pawns are forward. His weak point is e4, and I own it. And that knight is as strong as any other piece on the board right now. That knight is king of the universe as far as that goes. Isn't that fantastic how you see that? So I'm being very happy right now, and of course, he realizes here he comes, so he's got a castle. He is definitely going to castle because I'm coming after him at this point, there's no question. The question is, do I begin my kingside attack yet? No. A kingside attack is never going to work with just one or two pieces. I want all of my pieces in on this. All of them. A kingside attack is an entire army process, and I'm not fully developed. In fact, I'm not very well developed at all. The space is fairly even. I have more queenside space here because of this pawn, of course. And he's going to have to do something about that. That is a target, even though I've got him supported with my queen at this point. So my idea is to bring more firepower out because I'm going to do a kingside attack because I have this wonderful outpost knight that's not going anywhere. He can't get rid of that knight. That knight is going to prove to be his nemesis. He, of course, has to finally directly challenge my pawn. Why? Because I'm keeping him from developing. He can come out to here, of course, but from here, he can't do anything either because of my fabulous central power. So this is very, very good position for me. So why not take my time and develop my whole army into this? Don't go on a 1- and 2-piece excursion. You can't win that way. Bring your whole army in. I'm going to threaten to come to a kingside, pull my rook over, and here I come. Because the board now tells me to. And of course, he's going to take that pawn. Now, the cool thing is, now I have a target. The doubled pawns are not necessarily a weakness as such. Don't get in that mindset. These are covering very important squares toward the center. However, this pawn is extremely weak, and I've got a target here. And I take advantage of that immediately. I didn't even hesitate to take that. Now I have wonderful queenside power, central power, and the potential for a kingside attack. See, in a way, I'm getting it all in this game. And if you can do that, why not? Well, he's not going to let my queen stay there. So, of course, he's going to chase her off. And I put her right back to where she was because, technically, I want to do a kingside attack. But I've got weaknesses here. That pawn is extremely weak on that b3. I've got a weak pawn here on e3, so I've got targets. His queen is completely undefended. Notice that. There could be some potential combinations here. Now the tactics begin to play, and I see something else that's very interesting tactic-wise. He's pushing his pawns. He's trying to get queenside space, which is a good thing because now the center is locked. Now it's time to go to the wings, and so I'm not going to let him come up too far, but I see another tactic that's too beautiful to lose, so I push this pawn, and he should have seen it. Can you see what I want to do now? In the Dutch especially, but in all games, you want to keep your eye out for tactics. And all of the books say this, and since I'm no good at tactics, it's really fun to see this tactic. You notice his rook and his queen are on a same color diagonal. There's a potential chance here for a skewer. I've pushed my pawn. Now my bad bishop can come into play. So see, don't let the label good and bad bishop freak you out. This bishop is a bad bishop. My central pawns are on the same color. So I'm limited in my activity. He didn't notice the danger. He was so interested in developing his pieces because my center is so strong that he did not notice this tactic coming up. And now my bishop becomes an absolute monster powerhouse piece. I'm using my open file. I've got access to the A6 square, and I skewer his queen to his rook. I mean, at this point, my mouth is salivating. I am excited as all get out for this. He is coming to damage my center and offer to exchange queens. So he got a central pawn. That's a great move. You notice he's developing toward the center. He's trying to develop a wing side, but he's going to the center. Now, this is good chess. This is what you want to do. He's got a great fork on my rook and my queen here. Really good move. Do I want to exchange queens yet? At this point, I thought, no, I don't, because I want to do a kingside attack. I think I can get him because I have such a great outpost here for that knight to jump into the fray if I can ever get to the kingside. However, I have to take care of the center first, and this knight is doing great defense duty here of keeping me out of the kingside. You see how that works? I don't want to change queens, so I come over here to threaten his knight, and he drops his queen down. Now, at this point, you know, there's so much you can do, but I didn't do this as good as I thought. And I'm looking at this rook, I'm saying, man, free rook, free rook. However, it's an exchange. There is a free knight here. I should have taken that knight. I just should have, darn it. But I didn't. I took the rook instead. Now, he does a great move. I swapped rooks. Or I should say, he swapped rooks. He takes the rook with the knight. I take the knight with my knight, which brings out another knight, heading for g4 and an astonishingly fabulous position. He pulls his queen back and takes the bishop. So we've had an exchange. However, I still think I got the better of this because now look at that position. This is total dominance. White can't win. Now the interesting thing here is I'm a power up. You see, I'm a piece up. So in the exchange, I won anyway because I'm whittling him down and I have an extra piece. But I had a chance to be 2 powers up, and after I saw that, I said, well, I have a fantastic position. That's going to have to be the compensation. And he does something very interesting. I think he made an error here. He's wanting to swap the knights. Of course, he sees the kingside attack coming, but the side that's down a piece should not exchange because he's going to go down to an endgame where I have an extra power. I went ahead and took the pawn, the weak pawn. You notice that? I mentioned that a few minutes ago. That's one of my targets, and now I've got him, and I threaten his queen again. Now I'm in for a real good, powerful attack. He takes my knight, threatening to exchange queens again. See, he's playing good. He's staying in the center where he belongs. He's not trying to do some kind of a ridiculous wingside attack. Well, do I swap the ladies now? That's the question. No, I do not. I have a very powerful passed pawn at this point. I'm going to go ahead and use that pawn and come up the gut. And of course, he's got to find a way to stop my pawn. And he threatens my knight. But I come down here and take his pawn. And now I'm essentially in a 1 position. It's not going to be an easy win, but I've got this game in the bag. He brings his rook to here, of course, because he's going to try to catch up a piece. I don't want him to catch up a piece, so I'm going to pop my rook or my knight back here. Well, that gives him the pawn, though. Now my central pawn, my fun center, is gone. He's done an excellent job defending the center as he can, even though he's a piece down. The question is, now do I swap the queens? No. I see something else. I'm down a pawn. I can come down here and go check. I've got another great combination on the king and gain my pawn back. So he moves out of check. And now I've got this open file. I can come here and go check again. So now he's in trouble. The attack is on. He dodges up to here to e2. And, you know, on analyzing this game after I played it, I didn't do this the best. I really should have brought my rook down here. I didn't do this right. I want to use all three of my powers, so I'm bringing my knight into this. I'm threatening his queen. And, of course, he's going to simply move his queen and try to protect this pawn, of course. I moved my king out because he put me in check. And he moved his king again. Now, this is interesting. He is so scared. He's moving his king a lot. And I think, okay, well, let's go check. He dodges his king out of check. At this point, I don't know if I'm seeing ghosts or not, but I notice there's a potential here for a back rank checkmate for him somehow. I've got to give my king Luft. They call the term Luft. I took the time to open it up so that my king could escape in case he finds a way to do a back rank mate, because I have three powers and I want to use all three of them to come and get this open king. But if I lose my back rank support, he might be able to zip in there and do a nasty surprise checkmate. So it's good to take care of your king. Well, he's so scared with his king, he's still running with his king. I don't know if that was the, you know, he's in a tough position here. I bring my queen down here trying to hope to get some kind of a checkmate going, and he pulls his rook up to the 7th rank. See, he's got targets. I'm by no means strong here. He's got targets, so I've got to be careful too. And he's got pawns on this side. But I have three powers. If I can find a way to keep bringing my three powers together, I put him in check. He comes straight across to here. I'm thinking I've got to find a way to check him. I can't take the pawn, of course not. My rook coming down is no good because he's covered that square. So you see how this is working. I am trying desperately to involve all of my pieces. Well, I got to keep the initiative. I've got to keep putting him in check. He comes back to here. I've got these pawns that are covering squares. I've about got him if I can just find a way to corner his king here. I come here to go check. I've got this weak pawn I can possibly take. Of course, he moves out of check, and therefore his pawn is covered. So what do I do, man? What do I do? How do I get this going? And I missed a tactic here. Oh, for stupid. I noticed this after the game. I was so involved in trying not to let his king escape, I missed a beautiful tactic. I should have dropped my rook right to here. I had the square covered and I could have had his queen. And I missed it. Instead, what I did is I popped my queen up to here to try to protect my pawns and try to get in this angle here. But you notice something happening, and it started spooking me here. He drops his queen back here. He wants to change off the ladies really bad. My knight's way over here, and it's starting to be left out of the action. I have to keep my knight in this game because that's my extra power. But now I'm way over here in the slow, ponderous knight. I have to come all the way across the board, and it's going to cost me a couple of moves. So I'm thinking I got to keep him on the defense here. I'm going to put him in check, and he pushes his pawn. A great move. Blocking my check, and I'm thinking, holy cow. I've got to find a way to get my knight back into this game or I'm not going to win it. So I come down here and take a pawn, trying to get an angle up here, see? And he comes and takes my pawn, my weakness. So we swap pawns again. And now he's conglomerating around here. And my king, you know, this is ending up more difficult. I made it harder on myself than I should have. I don't want to swap the queens yet. Maybe I should have. But I got his pawn, put him in check. So I'm happy about this. Well, of course, the last of my pawn falls as he moves out of check. And now I'm thinking at this point, I absolutely have to get my knight back into this game so that I can corner his king. Otherwise, I'm going to lose his king. And of course, he's going to come here. He's desperate. He wants to try to swap the pieces. My rook is pinned. And now he's attacking my rook, which is a very good move. He's trying to get a rook and a queen for a rook. And it's a great tactic he's throwing at me, so I've got to play careful. Thank goodness I moved my knight, because now I have the knight move to take his queen. In case he takes my rook, I'll take his queen. Now my knight's getting back into the game, which I'm very happy about. He keeps that pin on there, though. It's a very, very good pin. But now his king is exposed a little bit. I can go ahead and go check and get out of the pin. He dodges down to here. I'm gently making my way up to him. Check again. And he comes back over to here. And I'm thinking, okay, I'm closing the gap. I'm closing the gap. Check. And then he finally moved to here. And then he resigned. At this point, I've got him, because now I can check him, take his rook, and then get his queen. This game was full of tactics. That's what I loved about this game. I wanted to show you that it's not necessary to instantly go into a kingside attack without your entire army, because of the rich tactics on both sides of the board, the various pins, the skewers, the piece taking, the exchanges, etc. This game illustrated, to me anyway, that have faith in the center. Mike played a great game in the center. You notice he didn't go off playing on the wing stupidly. He stayed right in the center and tried to make things work. Unfortunately, his opening was faulty, and I got a piece ahead. And I used that. Usually, as a general rule, if you're a piece behind, you don't want to exchange. I felt there was a couple places in the game where he exchanged prematurely, and he shouldn't have, and it cost him. So, another chess game, another great fun experiment. I tried a few tactics that I haven't done before. I experimented with opening this file, and it turned out to be really valuable for me in this game. So I hope you've got something out of this game, and thanks for watching my chess videos. I enjoy making them. I enjoy your comments. I enjoy your ideas. As we're learning chess together, you know, it's a slow upward spiral. We'll all get there eventually, as long as we try to use our thinking into using the correct principles by reading the position of the chessboard. Hey, I think we're going to be all right. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next chess video.